Record. All right. So here we go. We'll get started tonight. I'm going to share my screen here. There it is. I'm going to move this over here. We're moving everything around so that. All right. Oh, good. Oh my gosh, look at all these great words coming in. So I encourage you to open up that chat box so that you can see this too right now. And Nat, just can you give me a thumbs up if you see the intro slide and I'm all set there? Okay, great, super. All right, so I see things like hopeful, curiosity, companionship, joy, wonder, just cool, just something cool, serenity. Okay, super. All of these different types of feelings that are elicited from our experiences with birds. So privilege, oh good, relaxation, connection, great, Chloe, nice, presence, wonderful. I'm so glad these are all being captured in the chat because they're important feelings that, oh gosh, kind of remind us of the pleasant things in life right now. So tonight I want to talk to you a little bit about birding and wellness. And a lot of what I'm going to share with you tonight comes from my own experience and my own evolution in birding and the questions that I started to ask about how is birding changing my mental health and how I'm feeling. So here are some of the things that we're going to kind of cover and go through. We're going to talk a little bit about the biophilia hypothesis from E.O. Wilson. We'll talk a little bit about existing in our sensory brain and how we can do that a little bit more and the benefits of that. We'll talk about why birding is soothing and social and why that social component is so important, and a little bit about how we missed that during the pandemic, but at the same time, we figured out other ways to kind of tap into and connect with each other. We'll talk about birding as a path to mindfulness for the yoga averse. I joke around about this a lot lately, especially with my slow birding programming that I'm doing. And we'll talk about how to tap into the healing powers of birds. So I'll leave you with some tips and things to try over the next few months as we move through spring and into summer. Great. So I'm going to share this quote with you that comes from this really interesting book that I have on my book list of summer reads. This is a book called 5 Birds on a Wire by Melanie Charlene. And what's interesting is she wrote this book about her experience meeting someone who is a birder and not really understanding it at all, and then how she came to love it and kind of find her own pathway with birds. In the book, she writes, "The sun rises, the sun falls, the wind blows, and the birds sing no matter where you are. These are experiences that unite us all, something we can all enjoy together." And that's probably a little bit about why you're here tonight. In some ways, each of us has had some kind of experience with birds that's drawn us here. I think a lot about my conservation work and how tapping into birds can be a very powerful kind of pathway for action. And some of the most unlikely people kind of telling me crazy bird stories, and how everybody, no matter who you run into, once you get talking about birds or that bird topic comes up, everybody's got some kind of bird story. And I'm sure that you do too. So really at the root of all of this is something that we call biophilia. So our attachment to birds, or it could be anything really in nature, our love for flowers, our love for trees, gosh, just the earth and the soil itself, those of us who are gardeners, right? This is that love for natural things. And E.O. Wilson wrote in 1986 this book called Biophilia, and he kind of coined this term, and he calls it the innate tendency in human beings to focus on life and lifelike processes. And what he continued through his work to kind of think about is that when we remove, in this next quote, it suggests that when we remove human beings from the natural environment, or we remove ourselves from the natural environment, the biophilic learning rules are not replaced by modern versions. So the things that we are attached to now in terms of technology or distraction or entertainment cannot fulfill that same thing that nature fulfills for us. And I think many of us got back to that during the pandemic, feeling like we didn't have our social connections anymore. We didn't have that ability to go into town, right? We were isolated in our own place, and it caused us in a way to kind of reroute ourselves and become reconnected with that place right nearby. Later on, about 10 years after he wrote Biophilia, Wilson wrote an essay in 1996 where he went on to kind of call out psychologists and others to say that they had been slow to address the mental consequences of being detached from the natural environment. And that really those people and our community as a whole were really obligated to understand biophilia in more urgent terms, because the natural environment is disappearing. And in effect, it then affects our own mental health. In a way, I think we're catching up with this. In the past 5 years, there have been numerous scientific papers and articles about why our connection to nature is so very important for our health and our well-being. And birds are really a basic and big part of that connection. At the end of the presentation, I'm going to give you a couple of books to tap into and read. I'm looking above at my bookshelf here going, oh, there's that one. Nature Fix is one of my favorites. It's written by Florence Williams, and it's a really wonderful, easy read about how she dug in a little bit more with how people are studying this connection to nature and why it's so important. So here's the thing about birds. This is why I think birds it can be so very simple to connect with birds and so very rewarding if we have this intention of connecting in a way that can refresh us and rejuvenate us, and that it's not just about identification and having a list of birds. So really, birds are ubiquitous. They're everywhere, right? Like, so there's a picture of a pigeon there first. There is a bird no matter where you are. I'm pretty sure any time of year, if you tried hard enough, you can get outside and find something with feathers out there. And pigeons count too. So do house sparrows. They have incredible behaviors and vocalizations and things that can spark our sensory processes and the parts of our brain that kind of tap into nature. Curiosity. They are doing things that cause us to say, what is going on? Like this hooded merganser here that is in full flare mode with those feathers on the top of his head. And not only that, but is completely upright in the water displaying. So the next question is what's going on and why? So they exhibit all these different behaviors that push us to these curious moments. And they're incredibly sensory. We have song sparrow in the last little box there singing away. So not only do we get beautiful colors and things to attract our eye and behaviors that cause us to question things, but we also get that auditory stimulation. And sometimes it's really overwhelming, like right now, right? You walk outside the door and there is so much going on to the soundscape. And what's really nice is they kind of ease us into that from winter through the spring as everybody migrates back. So we are kind of wired and ready to connect with birds. And I think they're one of the easiest ways to make this natural connection for our own well-being. So let's talk a little bit about what's really going on in our brain. And I was kind of blown away when I started to read more about this and dig into this and try to think about why is my practice in birding changing and how is it benefiting me? Some of you know about my new set of programs around slow birding, which is really a different approach to birding that kind of lets go of really hardcore identification, always having to know, always having to go somewhere to find different things, and settling into a way that is really kind of connecting us deeper in place through the lens of birds. And what I was finding it was really calming. It was doing a lot more for me than I expected. So there are two things that kind of emerge when we start to think about how birds and nature have an effect on us. And these are the two things here. One is cognitive function, and the other is stress response. So cognitive function refers to brain-based skills, which we need in order to obtain knowledge, to manipulate information, and to reason. And it's what allows us to be focused and productive. The other piece is stress response, and this includes physical and thought responses to our perception of various situations. Man, if you think back on this pandemic year that we have been through, we have been thrown so many more new situations, right, that have pushed us to these different levels of stress than we have ever experienced before. So when the stress response is turned on, our body releases substances like adrenaline and cortisol. And what's super cool is that if you spend time outdoors, basically what happens to your brain is two things. You're going to start to release different types of substances in your brain that affect how you feel differently. And it also gives your brain a chance to relax so that your cognitive function increases. So to summarize that, really what we're saying is that being in a natural setting, even for just 15 minutes, this is from a study from the Center for Nature and Health from the University of California in San Francisco, is that just 15 minutes in nature, they show that it increases your ability to solve puzzles, it improves your cognition, it improves your attention span, drops your blood pressure, and your pulse rate is improved as well. So there's this whole new theory that's developed out of this. It's called attention restoration theory. And what these two people, it's Rachel and Stephen Kaplan, they started studying this in the 80s. What they've started to discover is that people can concentrate better after spending time in nature or even looking at scenes of nature. So I think about this like my Instagram feed, we're going to go back to technology, which we could say is like a big distractor, but my Instagram feed is full of people who love nature, right? So the images that I'm scrolling through are constantly birds, nature, gorgeous sunsets and things from all over. And so even those kind of images, changing the type of imagery or the types of social media that you follow can affect your brain in a more positive way. Not perfect, right? Because it is social media and it is distracting and it is like completely all the time. But by choosing different types of content to follow, you can actually kind of help yourself out. I'm sure some of you have discovered that as well. So whether you watch birds from inside or outside, whether you're in your backyard or you pack up and you head out someplace else, what you're actually doing is you're giving yourself a chance to recharge mentally, and you're stimulating your brain in a way that is like completely opposite from what stress does to your brain. Here's one of my favorite quotes from John Burroughs. This is from 1912, from a piece he wrote called Time and Change. And I bet you've heard this before. And I think it just rings so much truer this year, especially for me. When I felt stressed and anxious, I think I felt anxiety for the first time ever. I've definitely felt different levels of stress, but anxiety and anxiety attacks were totally new to me. And what I did is I stepped outside, did some deep breathing, and I let the birds call me back into awareness. And so John Burroughs says, I go to nature to be soothed and healed and to have my senses put in order. You can even say, have my senses put back in order. I'm sure many of you have felt that in not even just this year, but throughout your time connecting with the natural world. So here's what I call the bird effect, about being called by birds, not just because they are calling and singing, but because they pull us out of this certain state that the brain can get in and help us kind of recalibrate our senses. So from the book, Nature Fix, this is on page 47, she writes, birds pull us out of the executive network of our brain, the part that's intellectual and task focused. That's that left side of the brain that's just like cranking along. And what they do is they call us to attention and they allow us to be in the part of our brain, and this is the right side of our brain, that produces empathy, creativity, and insight. So this really gives our thinking brain then a chance to recover. Watching and listening to birds is really, in effect, restorative. And what happens is this allows us to be more productive. Some of you may know that our family chose to homeschool our kiddos through this pandemic. And one of the things that was a big pressure for me was being productive, both as the caregiver at home, the teacher, and then the bird diva. And I was trying to carry all three of those things. And man, my productivity would just drop. But if I went and sat at my sit spot, especially in the morning for 20 minutes and started my day that way, everything was just calmer and more mellow. And I found that I could be more productive. Also, if I took a break, right, there are multiple studies out there that actually show how taking a break outside during your work day or during your school day can make you more productive. My sister is actually doing a lot of work in this realm at North Branch Nature Studies. She leads a program called Educating Children Outdoors, and has documented with teachers how having these extended outdoor breaks with kids, when they come back inside, they're actually more productive and able to focus on the different tasks and things that they need to complete for school. All right, let's dig in a little bit deeper and talk about, like, what is it about birds? Like, why are birds like such a big part of this? So bird sounds, what's your ear for soothing sounds? We're going to play around with this. So make sure you have your chat box open. And you know what? I got to stop share and then pop in again, because I think I forgot to click the audio box. So forgive me for a moment. We're just going to stop. And then I'm going to try to share again. Here we go, share screen again. And I got to click that little share sound button. Sometimes I forget to do that, and I don't want to jip you guys out of the audio. All right, so get your chat box ready, because I'm going to play some audio. So here's what's really kind of interesting. This is from the book, The Nature Fix, again, too. It's thought that birdsong has similarities to human-made music, and its range and technical wizardry might, on some unconscious level, stimulate your happy music neurons. If you think of those songs that you really love to listen to, right? The ones that like just get you dancing in the kitchen, even if you're doing like the worst pile of dishes in the world, like the same thing can happen with nature sounds, and bird song is one of them. So what we're going to do here is I'm going to play a couple of different bird sounds. And I want you to tell me, like, are they good? Are they bad? Does it stimulate your happy neurons or not? All right. Here we go. I'm going to play this first one. And so I'm going to ask you, like, thumbs up, thumbs down. I could listen to that all day, or please make it stop. So you could put in the chat box, you could do a smiley face, you could do a thumbs up on your screen. I'm going to play it one more time. Yay. Okay, so I've got soothing. It's soothing and sweet. It's the best, John Little, the best. personal favorite. It's so calming, right? I hope some of you have heard this bird already. Get my little picture here. There we go. So this is hermit thrush. Somebody, yeah, Patrick was like, it's a thrush, you got it. Yeah, Alex, I was thinking of this bird when you were when I was leading up to this, right? And you like the silence in between. Oh my gosh, Nancy, that's so true, right? The absence of that sound too. So hermit thrush is our state bird. It's one of the woodland thrushes that we have. And it was actually it was discovered that hermit thrush sing, that the harmonic intervals that hermit thrushes sing in are pitches recognizable by the human ear, which make them pleasant. So musicians, there's been folks that have studied different types of music that have these same harmonic intervals, and then interviewed people and been like, what do you think of this? What does it sound like to you? And these harmonic intervals get like the thumbs up every time. All right, I know, thrush, you want to just keep going. Let's stop. We're going to go on to the next one here. All right, so here we go, like thumbs up, thumbs down. What do you think? I shouldn't make any faces while that's happening. That's not really fair. All right, how are you feeling? I don't know which to prefer, says Aaron. They are alive, very busy. See, now you guys are so positive. This is really good. Okay, I wouldn't call it soothing, but wonderful in its own way, right, Chloe? Right, we're learning to appreciate the good in everything. Patrick says cacophony. They seem happy. They sound busy, confusing chatter. Okay, so this one is European starling. Oh my gosh, Laura, I love that. Fun, what's going on? They sound like they're having a lot of fun. They may just be. Some people find this irritating, right? So European starling vocalizations are considered dissonant. They may not be super appealing to the human ear, but I can tell that you guys are really, nuanced in all of this and appreciating all different types of sounds out there. So that's really good. Corvid sounds and some blackbird sounds are not generally considered peaceful or restorative by many. So it may not work with all birds, but then again, if you have an experience with these birds that is pleasant and joyful, you're going to attach that to that sound. If the European starlings were the ones that nested in your dryer vent and kept you up all night, right, you may not like that sound. So there's also this experience that we attach to it when we are experiencing different vocalizations. All right, here's number 3. Tell me what you think. All right, you guys had some amazing, I could write a poem from the comments that you put in the chat. I think we should just pull all of those two together, all of them, all of the comments together. So here's the really interesting thing. And I've been playing around with this a lot in the classes that I've been teaching. When we think about learning bird song, we want to learn individual bird songs so we can identify the bird. And oftentimes what we're missing is this larger piece, which is the soundscape, and all of the different layers that make up kind of that imprint of place through sound. And I wanted to include this. And what I loved is if you just scroll back through everybody's comments, you're going to see all kinds of things, including this attachment to memories. Every time I listen to this, one of the things that happens to me is my shoulders drop. I want to take a deep cleansing breath. And all I can smell is like the Maine woods and water. Like that sensory piece comes back to me as well. My olfactory senses are tied deeply with this soundscape. So soundscapes are really the blending and orchestral sound of a natural area. And we can hit the trifecta of sounds that are good for your health when we get certain combinations together. And oddly, those combinations are water, wind, or breeze. In some cases, wind isn't really pleasant, right? But if you think of breeze or wind or something gentle along those lines, and birds, those three things together tend to have a really strong effect on people. They feel good. So think lake, pond, ocean, wetland habitats, minus the mosquitoes, right? It's what folks gravitate toward living near, right? How many of you have said, I've always wanted to live near the water. I want to have a place on the water. I want to be able to be near the water. That view shed also is part of that experience. So we put all of those things together and we have something combined that can really make us feel good. There's actually airports and schools and hospitals that play birdsong because studies have shown that it improves mood and mental alertness. So just 5 minutes a day. Earlier I was saying 15 minutes, right? Even 5 minutes a day is all it takes to kind of stimulate that relaxation in your brain. It's a little bit harder in the wintertime, which is why outdoor microphones that can pick up on bird sound that might be coming to your feeders is even great and soothing and relaxing. Awesome. I love all these. Wind often carries, and the wind carries the smell of pines and all of that. Oh my gosh, Patrick, you're so right. So here's another thing I want you to do. Okay, I want you to think of an awesome moment you've had with a bird. And I want you to think back to that moment, and I want you to try and recall as many details as possible. Were you alone? What was the day like? How did you feel? Just grab that moment and see how much you can pull out of it. The reason why I called this an awesome moment is because awe is a core positive emotion, along with joy and contentment and passion and pride and love and amusement. It really has the ability to change a person's perspective for a long time. The other piece about this that I got really jazzed because I watched a bunch of video tutorials by this guy, John Muir Laws. He's a nature journal teacher. He has a number of books out. He's really incredible. And I was watching one recently on journaling in the field about birds. And what he suggested is that whenever we have an experience with a bird, or anything that we find particularly fascinating, or something that's new, celebrate it. Like, get overly excited about it. He says, love on it really hard, because what happens is that releases dopamine in your brain, and it creates, that's those happy neurons like firing and going off. And what it will do is it will actually create a stronger memory thread to that experience. So for example, and I want you to think about, I want you to think a little bit about your awesome moment while I share mine. And I don't know if Charlotte is on here, but I kind of hope she is. So awe elicits connection. So Keltner, this guy is a professor of psychology at UC Berkeley. He believes that awe causes us to seek out social connections to share the experience. And Awe evokes curiosity. So it takes us outside of ourselves and really pushes us to ask questions and explore novelties. When we experience new things and when we celebrate them, right, you get all lovey on it, like I'm doing down here with my friend Charlotte. We experience new things. The brain releases dopamine and other feel-good chemicals. So one year at Lake Carmi up here in northern Vermont, I thought I saw a duck that I had never seen before. It was as a rainstorm was coming across the lake. I was by myself and it was foggy out, and something in my brain clicked on as I was looking at these rafts of ducks that had ringnecks and scaup in there and all of that. And this one bird stood out and it caught my attention because I thought it had seaweed off the back of its head. But every time it dove, it came up with that same piece of seaweed there again. And what I did was I sat in my car, I was trying to figure this out, and all of a sudden my brain went tufted duck. No idea why. I had no experience with this bird before, but I must have seen it in a bird guide. And it was really cool and awesome because I had no time to get a picture or get my scope out because the next thing you knew, the rain was right on top of us. Well, the next day, a friend, Russ Ford, went out and got pictures of the duck, which was really amazing. And after that, a bunch of friends reached out to me and they were like, we're coming up, we're coming over, we want to see this bird. And we got this chance to share this awesome moment together. So these moments tend to be full of really new information, which can be super exciting, but it also in a way quiets the body to what it's experiencing. And this can, after all of the excitement, it can actually lead to a lower heart rate and feelings of empathy and compassion. When we share that with others, we're spreading that, and in a way that social connection causes us to share the experience, and that awe gets passed from one person to the other. So the tough thing about COVID in this past year is a lot of us as birders didn't have this opportunity to connect with each other in the same way that we were used to. And many of us found other ways to do that, right? We're on Zoom right now in order to do that and be safe and still connect with each other about the awesome things that we're discovering. And I want to put a little pitch in here for discovering the awesome in the ordinary. And I think many of you have experienced that in this past year, where as birders, a lot of times we think we have to go elsewhere to find something cool and amazing and fun to look at that gives us that rush as a birder. And a lot of us started to bird closer to home and discovered awesome and incredible things in the ordinary and the familiar right near us. So on that note, I want you to consider this. This is from one of my favorite books that was foundational in my thinking around slow birding. It's from Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind by Shunrin Suzuki. I read a little bit of his work because of another book called, and I'm trying to find it up here, Zen Birding, which I had never really thought about meditation or Buddhist practice and the tie into birding, but here it is. So in the beginner's mind, there are many possibilities, but in the experts, there are few. When we get to this point where oh my gosh, and I get this a lot. People introduce me as a bird expert and I'm like, nope, totally not. Still curious, still learning stuff all the time. I'm not always right. And I want to stay in that beginner's mind as long as possible because it's really super joyful. So I encourage you to do the same thing. We encourage kids to be curious all the time. Why do we stop doing that as adults? And why, as adults, do we shut down in a way and become experts and say, we know this. This is what I know. And we don't continue to allow ourselves to be open to new experiences and asking questions. So this kind of leads into this shift of mindful birding. I've never been into yoga. I've tried. I liked hot yoga for a while. That was fun. But I really it didn't click for me. I understand meditation is really good. I can't do that much either. I haven't been able to make that stick. But what I really wanted was a way to connect and slow down. And what mindfulness does, my understanding is that it is a practice of concentration and connectivity, and it actually can help you reduce stress and anxiety. So I really think of mindful birding in a very open and big way. And one of the people that really helped me kind of think about my birding practice as something that was actually mindfulness is another author. Her name's Claire Thompson, and she wrote this book called The Art of Mindful Bird Watching. She's English. And she says, mindfulness is paying attention on purpose, without judging, and with kind acceptance to our thoughts, feelings, bodily sensations, and surrounding environment. So when I sit and bird now and I spend time on my sit spot, I'm actually paying attention to more than just the birds. I'm paying attention a bit more to how I feel and how my body feels and how I'm carrying my body. A lot of times I get out on my sit spot and I'm all like, oh, just cranked right up. And my shoulders are right up to my ears. And after about 20 minutes, especially if I'm set the intention of being in the moment and allowing the birds call me to awareness, all of that starts to relax. So for me, I start thinking about mindful birding as being in the moment with whatever bird is there. Every bird is a good bird. It doesn't matter who's in front of me in that moment. I think of it as letting go of expectations. I need to go out and find this bird today. This is the bird that's on my target list. I need to name and know all of them. You can enjoy a bird whether you know its name or not. It's really hard not to want to know its name because that's pretty natural. But you can still do that. You can still enjoy and connect with that bird. The other thing I do a lot more of now birding is breathing and relaxing and taking some deep cleansing breaths and sitting still in one place and not always feeling like I have to move. It makes me feel rooted in that place that I am and with the birds. I did this today with my kids. We were hiking around Colchester Pond. It's called Stopping for a Snack. We stopped for a snack and we sat on the side of the trail. And wouldn't you know it, the yellow warblers came back in around us. And then a tiger swallowtail butterfly, literally, it was like it was following the path and it just flew eye level. We're sitting all on the ground right by us, like we weren't even there. And then a catbird dashed out of the bushes and dropped to the ground. And my daughter goes, look, it's got stuff in its mouth. And it popped into the bushes on the other side of the trail. And we were all there in that moment together, relaxed and connecting and breathing. It was really good. So it's kind of a little bit about my path to wellness through birding and recognizing that this thing that I loved was more than just naming all these birds and doing great work with conservation organizations like the Conservation Commissions and Cold Hollow to Canada and Audubon, Vermont. It became so much more. And that's where slow birding came from. I was really dissatisfied with how I was being told to bird. I had 3 kids. I can't go to Colchester Pond and try to get all the winged warblers and everything every morning. Why feel bad about that? I don't need to. I had a beautiful moment with my kids today. And that sit spot practice is really, like I said, grounded me in the place that I am. I have one here, and now I'm experimenting with when I go somewhere to bird. I have a little fold up chair that I bring with me that stuffs in my backpack. And if there's like a really great spot where there's a lot of activity, I just sit for a while and take a couple of deep breaths and relax and spend time with those birds. So here are my tips for you for what you can do to kind of switch it up and start to use your love and your connection with birds as a path to wellness as well. So the first thing is make the time. One of the things that I try to do is 20 minutes, maybe it's 10, maybe it's only 5, but 20 minutes each day sitting outdoors and allowing the birds to call me into all of my senses and just relaxing into that. I don't bring the phone. I don't use BirdNet to identify the birds that I'm hearing. I just sit and listen and watch and observe. So that's the sit spot method. Pick a place close to you, easily accessible, someplace right out the door. I live in St. Albans City. I've got a small patch of woods and a brook outdoors, but I literally open up my back door with my cup of coffee and I sit out there and just watch and observe. I work really hard at staying in my senses, and it's hard to shut off that gerbil wheel in my brain that's telling me all the things that I have to get done today, or that the kids are going to wake up any second and I'm not going to be alone anymore. So I try my best to stay in my senses. I have a journal that I use. I'm not much of an artist, but every once in a while I do try to sketch things that I see, but I take notes about what I'm seeing and what I'm observing. And I ask questions. I write the questions down that I'm curious about. And I bring those back in with me. And sometimes I investigate them and sometimes I don't. Sharing stories and connecting with others. I shared some stories with you, and from the few people that I can see in my little Brady Bunch box here, some of you smiled while I was telling those stories. And so I know that I connected with you through the telling and sharing of those experiences that I have had with birds, or just with my practice in general. So do that with other people. Share things, snap a photo, send a text about birds. I have a friend who, geez, I think she texts me every morning about the birds that she's hearing right outside her door. And I love it. Let's see. All right. And this is the last quote that I'm going to leave you with. And then I'll give you some resources that you can scribble down. You can always reach out and email me for those later. Birds, Art, Life, A Year of Observation by Kyle McClear. So she says, now when I hear bird song, I feel an entry to that understory. When I'm feeling too squeezed on the ground, exhausted by everything in my care, I look for a little sky. There are always birds flying back and forth, city birds flitting around our human edges, singing their songs. So I wish you the best adventure this spring and summer in taking your love and your passion for birds and switching it up a little bit. These are 3 resources that I highly recommend. The Nature Fix by Florence Williams. She is an investigative reporter, and so she went out with a number of people all over the world studying the effects of time in nature on the brain and our health and well-being. David Whittle and Susan Guyette. David is a former president of an Audubon Society, I believe, in the Southwest. He passed away from cancer, but his approach to birding was just very different and being in the moment. Both he and his wife were practicing Buddhists, and his approach was it was so beautiful and different. And when he passed away, his wife Susan finished this book. It's a lovely short read, and you'll have all kinds of little tips and tricks to take with you into the field the next time you go. And then The Art of Mindful Birdwatching by Claire Thompson. She's the English woman that I told you about, and she leads workshops and stuff all over the world as well. And she's just got a beautiful little book, another short read that's just totally worth it. That'll just kind of spin you around in terms of how you connect with birds and nature. And of course, you can always reach out to me. So you can find me at birddiva.com, and I'm on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And I always love a good email story. I may not have the answer for you, but I love trying to figure it out. And I love just wondering with you about it as well. So I want to thank you very much for coming. I'm going to unshare my screen and we can open it up to questions. So feel free to pop a question in the chat box if you like. Here we go. I'm just going to slide all this over and close some of these and open things up. You guys are welcome. Yes, thank you so much for coming. Anybody have anything they want to share? A practice that they want to share? A moment with a bird that was like, oh, this is what got me. Everyone's just all mellow and smooth. That's good.
If anybody can share what bird they thought of when Bridget asked us to think of a happy bird moment, like that just thrilling moment. I'll share one I had in just recently. There was a snowy owl in Enosburg across the way from Hannaford's, and it was amazing in late April to see this white bird that we rarely see here, and just the joy of seeing that, and the camaraderie. It was somebody who I know was a birder, and his daughter, who called me up because they had seen it. So careful not to disturb that bird in migration, but a few others shared the joy, and it was just a memory I'll always have of this special bird and community.
And connection, that's that awe and social connection piece. That's just so special. Super. Andrew's saying, I happened on my first woodcock a few weeks ago. I'm curious, like, what's the spring bird that like gives your like heart palpitations? Like, or the spring thing. Like, I was out this weekend, and the women that I was doing a private walk with, this one woman she just was like, it's spring. And she just kept taking deep breaths over and over again. She's like, I just love this time of year. I think for me, I get, I don't know. There's so many birds now to get excited about. I do love woodcock. And I'm really grateful that Chloe and I and Annette figured out a way last year to like bird online together in dusk to be able to hear that. I couldn't see it. You guys were seeing your woodcocks, but I was in my backyard in downtown St. Albans and got to enjoy that, which was just so special. Alex says, I'm happy when the vultures return to the pines near my house. 15 to 20 roost in the same spot every year. I like to see them come in at sunset. And Patrick says, grouse drumming every morning for almost a month. It's so relaxing. I don't know about you, Alex, but I feel like I feel grouse before like the auditory piece kicks in. You know, that thumping sound is almost coming through the ground rather than coming into my ears. Pam says the winnowing sound of the snipe. I have a friend that in the Mad River Valley, when I used to live down there, who called that the woo-woo bird. So that is a story that sticks in my head. So there's a social humor connection too when we have these experiences together that cements knowing a bird in your brain. Awesome.
Can I share a quick story?
Yes. Okay. Wait. So let's see. I heard a female voice first, I think.
Yeah, that was Sarah.
Hey, Sarah. Yes, please.
So I got this. It wasn't me who saw this. This was my son, my 13-year-old son, who was down in Montpelier, and he called me up yesterday, and he said he was just so excited. He said, I saw an owl today, and I got 18 minutes of video clips of it.
Oh.
And he's been busy taking photographs of the chickadees off our back porch and the woodpeckers, but he's really got into this whole bird thing. And
yay.
You know, every time we go out somewhere, and he's like, stop the car, I've seen there's a Canadian goose. I want to take a picture of it.
I've got to do that. Oh, that's great.
So cool. Him saying that about the owl, and he shared his some of the videos with me this morning.
Oh,
And it was really cool.
that's lovely. And he thought to call you right away.
Yep.
Yeah, and tell you all about it. Oh,
Yep.
Patrick, you jumped in to share something too, right?
Yes, I was on a fishing trip this weekend / camping trip, and it turned out to be more of a birding trip for me. I didn't catch any fish, but while I was fishing in New Hampshire, I happened to see at the far end of Oliverian Lake, which is near Haverhill, New Hampshire, where I was at, a bald eagle flew out of a dead tree,
Ooh.
and I watched him grab a fish. And there was a certain irony to it that I later wrote in my journal about how he had much better luck than I did fishing. And I had the thought, I have my birding stuff with me all the time, my spotting scope and my binoculars and all that. But it was in my truck, and I had thought about running over to get that and set up the perfect situation. But it kind of turned into more of a mindfulness moment of just being present, letting go of the equipment and just use natural body to see what I could observe without the optics to enhance the experience.
Was it hard to do that? Did you, was there like that push pull in your brain,
yes.
or did you relax into it?
I really wanted to, I was very tempted to go over to my vehicle and get my knapsack that has my tripod and my spotting scope and my bird ID books. And I also have a digiscoping attachment, and I wanted to like capture the best moment possible and to be able to share it with people. But I was just like, you know what? I'm going to let go of all of that. And it seemed as though some of the quotes that you presented tonight were apropos to the situation. I was just living in the moment and that sort of thing. So no, it was great.
Good. I can see the smile on your face as you think about that choice. That's so good. Yeah. I think it's really hard, and it's interesting because in the birding community, in the birding world, like we can come into it from a bunch of different directions. And many of us, like that traditional birding is about having the gear and getting the photo and, knowing the name and looking it up in the book and finding the joy in relaxing into the moment without all of that. I do that without my glasses, man. There's times that I walk out of the house and I don't have my glasses on. So I can't see everything super clear, and I get frustrated, but then I'm like, well, what can I see without my glasses? And how can I be in them? What else can I notice or listen to or be aware of if I don't have even my glasses with me? So John in the chat box says, we've been excited to see waterfowl visit briefly on our new pond. Yay, wood ducks, mergansers, and Canada geese. Oh my gosh, those guys, just that smooth flow of how they get to move across the water. We were watching Canada geese today, and I find that very relaxing as well. Super. Anyone else have anything to share? I want to be really aware of your time because I know, right, some of us have probably had 6 or 7 Zoom things all day. And, right, this is the end of our evening. Anyone else? Awesome. Well, listen,
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. And you know how to get in touch with me. I'm at birddiva@gmail.com. I want to thank the Montgomery, Enosburg, and Richford Conservation Commissions. Thank you, guys. I miss you all. And I cannot wait to see you in person again at some event soon. So
we'll bring back some bird walk, Bridget, when we can.
Yeah, we'll get back out on that rail trail, especially. I loved that walk that we did.
Forest. Yeah.
So good. Great. And in the meantime, you guys get out there and try something a little bit new and just kind of melt into the scene with the birds around you. I can't wait to hear about it. Send me an email. Tell me how it goes.
Yep, sharing stories is therapeutic. So
It sure is.
hear it for the birds and stories. Thank you so much, Bridget. You did a fabulous job, and I'm excited for all the new information and the resources that you provided. So thank you again very, very much. So
You're welcome. Take care, you guys.
thank you.
Have a great night.
Okay. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
You're
Bye,
welcome.
Chloe.